First off, I have to say I am in awe of the young speakers here today, and we get all of this negative media and information all the time, and you actually have given me more hope than I thought we had, so. So I imagine a world where everyone has the opportunity to reach their potential. And I'm creating this opportunity through the founding the nonprofit organization, the Pangea Network. We focus on empowering women, providing opportunity to women and children who live in pretty dire circumstances with access to education, training, and resources to help them live a better quality of life. And it's really through the work of their own hands that they make it happen. We provide the tools, and then they have to work hard to make it work, and they are, and they are my inspiration. I'm just going to highlight the key words in my vision. Everyone, meaning every person on this planet, regardless of what your family has or doesn't have, where you're born, what race or gender you are. Opportunity. Opportunity, there are circumstances that can make things possible to do something. And potential. Potential are the abilities that may be developed to lead to future success. So I'm going to go back to opportunity, and again, just look at the synonyms of opportunity: chance, occasion, opening, and time. And we've heard this word a lot today, and it sort of is a central theme to all of our lives. And I want to introduce you to the idea of the Equal Opportunity Index. Equal opportunity is basically saying that circumstances at birth should not determine the success of someone's life. So circumstances that are typically beyond a person's control. And what are those circumstances that we need to consider when talking about this? Prenatal health care, basic infrastructure, clean water, safe water, shelter, basic sanitation services. All of those things lead to better health. And then you have nutrition on top of that for proper brain function and development and physical development. We also have the idea of political freedom. We here have the choice to decide what we want to do. And primary education, preschool and primary education are the foundation for our time in school and for future learning. So what's set up at that time, habits are learned or not learned at that time. So how good is your primary education? And then physical security. Sorry, I skipped around a little bit. But living in absence of war, and what a difference that can make in someone's opportunity in life, and being free of conflict. So just to tell you how important opportunity is, the World Bank sponsored research in 2008, and these researchers came up with the Human Opportunity Index. And basically, this calculates how personal circumstances can relate to a child's access to goods and services that will lead to success in their lives. And they created this to be able to compare country to country what the opportunity index is, and even within country, community to community. And as we all know, it definitely is not equal. So the circumstances they considered in coming up with this index, parents' education level. And they found that the mother's education level is actually more important than the males, given the amount of time that the mother spends with the children and passing on that education. Family per capita income. There was research done by a man named Miles Korak and found that in the United States, 50% of children born to low-income families become low-income adults. And 4 4 out of 10 high-income families produce high-income adults. And what that would say is that there's little equal opportunity when you're looking at this particular circumstance. The other elements, gender of the household head, whether both parents are present, and urban or rural location. So depending on what your circumstance is, you could either have greater opportunity or the opposite. Another major element of opportunity is hard work. So we all know people who have every opportunity in front of them, but don't seem to do a whole lot with it. And then we know stories of people who have overcome every obstacle, and they make great successes out of their lives. And so it's the hard work, the personal dedication, choice, and talent that we have to add to the idea of equal opportunity. And that's what the women that we work with, that's where the results come from. So for most of us here, all of these circumstances are pretty favorable. We have, most of our mothers had access to prenatal care, vitamins, good doctors, and literature to read up on how best to care for our children. Our schools are good. We have good homes with clean water, safe water to drink, plenty of food, proper nutrition, electricity, and a safe environment, political freedom, personal and political freedom to choose what we like to do on a daily basis. The schools, computers, computer labs, internet access, and maps, and another major element is people in our lives telling us that you can do anything you want to do. So for most people in the world, that's not the case. People are trying to survive on a day-to-day basis, and they don't really have space to dream about what they want to become and do. So we work in Kenya, so I'm going to be using Kenya as my main example for today, and I'll give you some main statistics. 50% of births in Kenya are not attended by a skilled health professional. You have a mortality rate for children under the age of 5 of 85 per 1,000 versus in the US, it's 8 per 1,000. And just to give you a quick story, I was sitting in a rural health clinic and there was a scuttle, and I asked, what's going on? And a woman had just given birth and they couldn't pay for the service. And so they locked her in the room by herself with her newborn until the husband could somehow find the money to come pay. And she could be locked in there for days. So 50% of Kenyans live below the national poverty line. Basic things like access to clean water. 40 million people live in Kenya. 17 million don't have access to clean and safe water. 22 million don't have access to proper sanitation services. So just right there, the incidence of illness, disease, and death is much higher than it would be here. Rural women and girls spend a lot of time collecting water, and you think about time in a day, that time then is not spent on education, learning, and income generation. 80% of rural Kenyans do not have electricity. So you think about schools in rural Kenya. This is a school, and there's no electricity inside. It's a classroom of about 70 children. They're sharing desks. They're sharing pencils if they have them. They're sharing paper if they have them. Books are a rarity. You don't see maps on the walls. You don't have computers in the rooms. And you certainly don't have internet access. So think of your children here in their 5th grade classroom and all that's available, and a 5th grader in this rural location and all that's not available. So how does Pangea work to equal opportunity? As mentioned, I founded the organization in 2005, and we focus on women because women are the major catalysts for change in their communities. You know, it's been proven that you put a dollar that a woman earns extra in her pocket, and it goes immediately to the family and to the children. So in poverty reduction work, you want to go where you can make the most impact. And so we focus on women. I'll take you through the life cycle, a typical life cycle of a Pangea cooperative. We basically work with groups of 15 to 25 women. And women in Kenya seem to come together naturally as a sense of social support. And so we find these groups who want the extra training and education, and we help formalize their group. We make sure they're registered with the local authorities and can therefore open a bank account. Many of these women have never been in a bank and never had a bank account. So in formalizing the process, the leadership's chosen by them. We don't dictate any of the rules. We want it to come from them, make it much more sustainable, and we want them to own it. This is theirs. So they decide on a weekly basis, they hold meetings, how much they're each going to contribute every meeting. And a portion of what they contribute goes to a general fund. Another portion goes to an individual savings account. And then another portion goes to usually an emergency fund. So if one of the women gets sick or something happens, they have that emergency fund that they can pull from and use. So the idea of savings is not a very common thing because they don't typically have excess cash around, and they have never had a safe place to keep it. So now with their bank account, they're able to keep track of a growing savings account on an individual basis. So over a 6-month period, we do a series of trainings and workshops that cover leadership, rights awareness, education. What are their rights as women in Kenya, and where does Kenyan law affect them and their choices? You know, a lot of women are married under traditional law, and they don't know that under Kenyan legal rights, they have no rights to their husband's property should he pass away. So marriage under civil marriage, they have that right. So just that one little tidbit of information can make a big difference in their lives. We cover basic business planning. Businesses that our women have, everything from selling tomatoes, vegetable stands, to tailoring, selling charcoal. Some of our women are farmers in the rural areas, and they farm in the morning and they take their stuff to the market in the afternoon. So at the end of 6 months period, we help them with bookkeeping and learning, you know, basic business skills. They can apply to Pangea for a loan, and they apply as a group, and they then, over a 6-month or a year period, lend that money out on an individual basis to the women. Loans are anywhere from $50 to $200, depending on the business that the woman has and the planning and the needs. So we basically have worked with 300 plus women in Kenya, and when you think about lives affected, it's many more because of the children and their children seeing a different vision of a future. I'm going to give you 2 success stories. This is Rose, and she lives in one of the informal settlements in Nairobi. The term slum, we prefer informal settlement. It can be said with a lot more respect for where people live. So she started out selling groundnuts, peanuts. And with the business planning, she decided she wanted to sell more groundnuts at greater profit. So she took her first loan to buy a big bushel of peanuts that she could divvy out more and make more profit. She paid back that loan, and she decided she wanted to expand her offerings and started with chai, with tea, and mandazis, which is a donut. And then she paid back that loan and said, all right, I want to open a small restaurant. And this is her in front of her restaurant. It's within the informal settlement. And when we were there visiting her, she had a lot of customers, and she's selling rice and beans and chai, mandazis. And I asked Rose, I said, so tell me, how has the Pangaea Network affected your life the most? And she got this huge smile on her face, and she said, I'm fat now. And she said, all of my children, she has 8 children, for the first time are in school. Now, primary school in Kenya is free, but if you don't have the finances to buy the uniforms or the shoes or the books, then your children are not going to school. High school is not free, and therefore many families can't afford for their children to go to high school. So for a woman to be able to say that all of her children are in school is a really, really big accomplishment. So the other story I want to tell you about is Angela. And Angela has had a series of small businesses, and she's basically been the main breadwinner for her family. Her husband, they're from Western Kenya, moved to Nairobi to find work, and he can find work here and there, but she is the consistent breadwinner for her family. And so she's sold mandazis, she's done little shops over time. And when we started working with her cooperative and went through the business planning, she says, oh my goodness, this is the first time I understand how to plan for my business. And one thing I have to say is all of these women are very bright. I learned so much from them. They just haven't had the tools to be able to utilize them in the right way. They calculate math faster than I ever could in their heads, and I just am constantly in awe of them. She, with the information that we offered, has tripled the size of her store. She has 3 children. They're all, eating well, and she said for the first time in her life, she is without stress. And that's a huge accomplishment. She took, by the way, it was a $200 loan that she took. So you think about $200 and what that does for us in our lives. And you think about what $200 could do for her and what it did for her in her life. So another part of our programs is student sponsorship. It came out of a need. We had one of the women in our cooperatives pass away. She left 8 children behind. And we thought, how do we help support these 8 children that are now orphaned? And an amazing man stepped up and said that he would support all of them through high school for boarding school. So now they're all in school, they have a place to sleep, they have food to eat, and they have an education. So we started a program where we now have 18 kids that are guaranteed, if they work hard, a high school diploma. And Helen, one of our young students, to give you an example, was being dragged down the street before we knew her, and Dorothy, who runs our office in Kenya, came upon them in her village and stopped and said, what's happening here? Her uncle was marrying her off to a 50-plus-year-old man, and Dorothy said, this isn't going to happen. Dorothy is a human rights attorney by trade, and this is not going to happen. And they took the issue to the chief, and the chief said, nope, this can't happen. And Dorothy paid each of the party members who wanted to get paid, and Helen now is safely in school. She's a 12-year-old girl who deserves a real childhood and now has one, thanks to sponsorships. So what I love seeing in the women that we work with is their pride that they have in their accomplishments, and seeing that they can achieve a lot. And for a lot of our women, they've never had someone look at them and say, I believe in you. And so something as simple as that, saying, I believe that you can do this and you're capable, can make all the difference in the world. I see them sit up straighter. I see them walk a little differently. And just hearing them say that I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish for my family, that makes it all worth it. So when you think about providing equal opportunity, what it can achieve, greater innovation at all levels, creativity, happier, more productive societies, more prosperity, less violence, and a more peaceful world, which is something I think we all want. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You explained what is your artifact?
Yes, my artifact are pencils. I thought it was, and a friend helped me. This is something that's so basic here and something that we don't give a second thought about. I have these in my desk at home. I never think about them, but they're prized for children that we work with. And so opportunity, pencils signifies writing, learning, creating, reading, so that's why pencils.
Wow, so something that we take for granted to such an extent that you can get them free everywhere.
Yes.
There's a prize there. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
Have you talked to Erin, our previous speaker earlier?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Great.
Yes, I'm very impressed.
Great, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.